Sarah Mitchell was having the kind of day where everything felt light and easy. She'd just gotten a promotion at work, the sun was shining through the coffee shop windows, and she was riding high on good news. When the disheveled man in front of her at the checkout had his card declined 3 times while trying to buy diapers and baby formula, she made a split-second decision that felt more like a punchline than charity. She handed him her credit card with a smirk and said, "Here, knock yourself out," never imagining he'd actually take her seriously. 24 hours later, that casual joke would become the biggest regret of her life, but not for the reason you might think. Before we dive into what happened next, if you love stories about real human connection and the unexpected ways kindness can transform lives, you're in the right place. Hit that subscribe button for Kindness World, give this video a thumbs up, and drop a comment below telling us about a time someone's generosity surprised you. Now, let's get back to Sarah's story, because what unfolded in the next day changed everything she thought she knew about judging people and second chances. The man's name was Marcus, and Sarah barely looked at him as she tossed her card onto the counter. She was scrolling through her phone, half distracted, when she made the offer. In her mind, it was obvious she was joking. Who actually gives their credit card to a complete stranger? She expected him to laugh it off, maybe make an awkward joke back, and then she'd pay for her coffee and leave. But Marcus, with tired eyes and shoulders that seemed to carry the weight of the world, looked at her card, then at her face, searching for sincerity. When she didn't immediately take it back, something in his expression shifted. He picked up the card with shaking hands and whispered, "Thank you. I'll pay you back, I promise." Sarah's smile faded. This wasn't how this was supposed to go. She wanted to snatch the card back, to explain that she'd been kidding, but the cashier was already swiping it and the people behind them in line were getting impatient. The transaction went through. $47.63 for diapers, formula, and a small jar of baby food. Marcus thanked her 3 more times, his voice cracking with emotion, and tried to give her his phone number so he could repay her. Sarah waved him off, suddenly uncomfortable with the weight of what had just happened, and left the store without her coffee. She spent the rest of that day annoyed with herself. Not because she'd helped someone, but because she hadn't meant to. It felt dishonest somehow, like she was getting credit for kindness she hadn't actually intended. That evening, she told the story to her roommate Julia, framing it as an absurd comedy of errors. "Can you believe he actually took the card?" she laughed. "I was obviously joking." But Julia didn't laugh. Instead, she asked a question that stuck like a splinter in Sarah's mind. Does it matter what you intended if the result was that a struggling father could feed his baby? Sarah couldn't sleep that night. She kept thinking about Marcus's face, about the desperation and relief that had flashed across it when he realized she wasn't taking the card back. She thought about his shaking hands and his repeated promises to repay her. Who was he? What was his story? Why was a grown man nearly in tears over $47? The questions gnawed at her until she finally admitted to herself that she felt guilty, not for helping, but for having done it with mockery in her heart. The next morning, Sarah's phone rang from an unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. The voice on the other end was Marcus, and he was calling from the hospital. Sarah's heart dropped, fearing the worst, but Marcus quickly explained. His 10-month-old daughter Emma had been sick for weeks. He'd lost his job 2 months ago when he'd had to take too many days off to care for her. His wife had left them both 6 months prior, unable to handle the stress of parenthood. He'd been surviving on the edge, selling his possessions, skipping meals, trying to make every dollar stretch impossibly far. The formula Sarah had unwittingly paid for had been Emma's last feeding before they'd had to rush to the emergency room the night before. Emma had pneumonia. She was going to be okay, but she needed to stay in the hospital for a few days. Marcus was calling because he wanted Sarah to know that her joke had quite literally kept his daughter alive through the night. If Emma hadn't had that formula, if she'd gone to bed hungry and weak, he didn't know if she would have made it until morning. His voice broke as he told Sarah that she was an angel, that her kindness had saved his little girl's life. He wanted her address so he could send her the money back as soon as he found work. Sarah sat down hard on her couch, her hands trembling. She hadn't saved anyone. She'd made a careless, sarcastic gesture because she was in a good mood and felt untouchable. But somehow, despite her intentions, that gesture had mattered more than anything she'd ever deliberately done. The regret that washed over her wasn't about the money. It was about how close she'd come to snatching that card back, to correcting Marcus's misunderstanding of her joke, to prioritizing her own comfort over his desperate need. She regretted laughing about it later. She regretted not seeing him as a full human being in that moment. Most of all, she regretted that it had taken his phone call to make her understand the weight of kindness. Intentional or not, Sarah went to the hospital that afternoon with bags of groceries, a gift card, and a check that would cover Marcus's rent for 2 months. This time, there was no joke, no smirk, no casual toss of a card. This time, she looked Marcus in the eyes and saw him completely. She met Emma, a tiny fighter with her father's eyes, and she understood that kindness isn't about grand gestures or perfect intentions. It's about showing up, about helping when you can, about recognizing that everyone around us is fighting battles we know nothing about. Marcus did pay Sarah back, months later when he'd found a new job and gotten back on his feet. But by then, they'd become friends. Sarah had learned that the universe sometimes uses our careless moments to create miracles we never planned. She'd learned that kindness counts, whether it starts as a joke or a genuine desire to help, because on the receiving end, it's all the same. It's hope. It's a lifeline. It's the difference between giving up and holding on one more day. Sometimes we stumble into doing the right thing for the wrong reasons, and that's okay. What matters is what we do next, how we grow from those moments, and whether we choose to keep showing up with open hands and open hearts. Sarah's accidental act of kindness taught her that every interaction matters, that we're all connected in ways we can't always see, and that sometimes the best thing we can do is take people seriously when they need help, joke or no joke. Spread kindness today. You never know whose life might depend on it.